Johnny Bolt is just a 10-year-old kid, but he already knows that his life isn't easy. He doesn't know anything about his dad and his mom neglects him like he's nothing. The only thing that brings Johnny some joy is the idea of superheroes keeping the city safe. He wants to fly away from his mother's house and become the most powerful superhero that everyone admires and respects. One day, Johnny's mom brought a guy to their house to watch Netflix and told him to go straight to his room and go to bed. Johnny reluctantly obeys her but surprisingly turns on the light using his mind. His mom was furious. She started yelling at him but left after noticing the lights were turning on and off by themselves. Johnny on the other side was ecstatic. He had awakened his superpower. He spent all night experimenting with it, controlling the electricity in all sorts of ways, from streetlights to toys. He even discovered several meanings for explosions, like the TV and the other guy who exploded after getting scared. Johnny was so excited the next day when he showed his power to his Michelin friend, Tom, by making all the streetlights turn red, getting him to school on time. At school, Johnny used his electrifying abilities to blast the speakers of one of the bullies, Dave, to stand up for himself. Tom quickly worked out that Johnny must have inherited this power from his father, who is probably a superhero. Johnny couldn't believe it and was feeling so proud. Johnny was so excited, he finally had superpowers. This meant that he could join the Union of Justice, an organization made up of some of the greatest superheroes ever. He decided right then and there to take on an exciting new superhero identity, Electro Boy. It was time for Johnny to step up and save the world. Johnny and Tom had a blast designing his superhero costume the next day. With Tom's help, Johnny was super excited to learn how to use his powers and even to fly, if you can even call it that. Johnny was determined to make an amazing debut as Electro Boy. After all the training, he and Tom searched for any crime in town. But there was nothing. It was a peaceful city. So Johnny decided to take matters into his own hands. He would make his debut at the public pool, impressing his crush, Janice, and other kids with his new powers. On his big day, Johnny flew into the sky with nothing but his electric power. Everyone below was amazed as they watched him soar up above. He introduced himself proudly as the Electro Boy, promising to use his abilities to fight crime. Johnny had been having the best day of his life until Dave suddenly figured out who he was and started to humiliate him. Poor Johnny felt so embarrassed. He lost focus and stumbled into the pool. But things got even worse when his shockwave deleted everyone in the pool. Johnny's heart was heavy with anguish and despair as he ran away. Tom followed him to make sure he was okay, and tried to console Johnny, but his words of comfort failed to reach the distraught boy. Tears streamed down his face as he realized that all his dreams of being a superhero were shattered forever. He wanted to scream out in pain but couldn't find the strength within himself. Johnny was so angry and frustrated that he whacked the ATM next to him. Surprisingly, the machine started spewing out cash. He couldn't believe what had happened. Johnny thought about how he could use his powers for something else. And just like that, Johnny decided to become the richest and strongest supervillain. Years flew by and Johnny became an adult. After spending 8 months in the Supermax prison, the only place in the world that could contain powerful villains, he was finally freed. He was finally reunited with his beloved Casey, the fearless supervillain. She had been patiently waiting for him outside and couldn't be more excited to see him. Casey was so excited to take Johnny home and have some quality time together, but his mischievous buddies had other plans. Johnny's pals threw him a party to welcome him back. They told him all about their plan: rob 10 jewelry stores in under 10 minutes. Francisco was a peaceful city and the chances of any superheroes showing up were slim. Johnny was super excited to take part in the heist, but Casey wasn't too keen on it and used her mind-controlling power to make his friends leave. Casey explained to Johnny that his friend's plan was from the Network, a powerful supervillain organization that takes money in exchange for their plans. She wants them to have a good life. She asked him to remain low until they found an awesome heist opportunity so they could retire and get married. The following day, Johnny joined his friends for their heist. They sprinted away from the scene, but cops were hot on their trail. Johnny unleashed his powers, making the cops' car go up in a big boom. His friend gave the police a hard time with extraordinary attacks. Then out of nowhere, Man Mountain and Rubber Ball, two superheroes, zipped down to stop them. They tried everything they could to slow Johnny and his friend down, even wrecking the city. Johnny's eyes widened as he felt the electrifying power coursing through him. With Kismet by his side, the two superheroes were no match for them. After a thrilling escape, Johnny thanked Kismet for helping him realize how much he enjoyed the rush of adventure. But before they could even celebrate, something strange happened. They found themselves teleported and face to face with Praetorian, one of the strongest superheroes with 200 different abilities. Johnny and his friends ran away, but Praetorian was too fast. He made many copies of himself so he could fight Johnny and his friend at the same time. Johnny tried to get away, but Praetorian was too quick. He delivered a powerful punch right to Johnny's face and sent him flying onto the ground. Johnny tried to zap Praetorian with electricity, but it didn't work. Suddenly, more of the evil clones appeared. Johnny was mad. He shouted that it wasn't fair and demanded a one-on-one battle. Johnny was all ready to fight, but much to his surprise, Praetorian decided to give him and his friends a break and left. Casey pulled up in her car, a concerned look on her face. She used her powers to change Praetorian's mind and save them all. Casey was fed up with Johnny's reckless behavior and decided she had to act. She warned him that if he kept putting his life in danger for these small jobs, their relationship would be over. So, she convinced him to join one of the epic heists organized by her mentor, Carmine, one of the legendary criminals. Carmine gathered all the group members in the hotel and surprised them by announcing his plan to steal Count Orlok's magical helmet from Union of Justice's headquarters. He promised each member 50 million if they pulled off this mission, and said it would lead them to a rich future. Johnny eagerly agreed to the mission without an ounce of hesitation, eager to take on the challenge. The group went to the headquarters early the next morning. Johnny's friends, Forecast and TK, were ready to put their powers to use. They unleashed hordes of zombies at nearby locations, daring the superheroes to come to face them in battle. Johnny and his crew break into the headquarters and snatch the prized helmet from inside the museum. They were so excited, but in an instant, all of their hopes and dreams were dashed when Praetorian appeared out of nowhere and destroyed it right before their eyes. Praetorian looked at the group with a smirk and declared that the helmet was not real. He said the genuine helmet was locked away in an underground vault, far from their reach. Ghost was quick to react when he heard about the helmet, and rushed off to try and steal it. But Johnny had a fight on his hands as Praetorian used the building's pillars to attack him. Casey stepped in to help by trying to make Praetorian hallucinate, but her power wasn't strong enough this time. Instead of being fooled, Praetorian sent Casey flying into the wall. Johnny was scared and desperate to protect Casey and get away. Praetorian was chasing them, throwing rocks to slow them down. Johnny understood that the situation had become dangerous and took it upon himself to protect his lover. He entrusted her safety to Carmine while stepping up to face the danger on his own. Johnny barely had time to dodge Praetorian's laser beam as it shot through the air, narrowly missing him and hitting innocent civilians in its path. Johnny retaliated with his electrifying power, but Praetorian skillfully blocked the attack. Then, Praetorian formed fireballs to unleash an even greater force. Desperate for a way out, Johnny quickly activated the fire sprinklers, creating a distraction that would hopefully buy him some time. Ghost returns after stealing the real helmet. The group cheered and quickly teleported to Carmine's safe house. It was time for celebration and were excited to see what Orlok would bring when he arrived. Carmine had a shocking reveal. The top secret group, the Network, was being led by Matt. He and Count Orlok were once best buddies in a notorious gang called the Syndicate. But Orlok and Matt couldn't get along anymore, so much so that they eventually disbanded. He anticipates Orlok is getting ready to return, and it's sure to be bigger and better than ever. He is set to become the greatest villain around, even outdoing the Network. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. To everyone's shock and awe, it was Praetorian. He had brought Matt along with him. It turned out that Praetorian was a double agent who had been working for Network all this time. With his freeze power, Praetorian immobilized everyone in the group while Matt laughed at them for underestimating the Network. The group watched in despair as Orlok arrived, but before they could do anything, Matt blasted his head and he was gone. With their promised money and helmet, the two walked away, leaving all of them feeling completely hopeless. Everyone in the group started blaming each other in anger, then they all decided to go their own way. On the way home, Johnny tried to cheer up Casey, but she couldn't take it anymore. She just broke down into tears and shouted out her frustrations. Johnny had a brilliant idea that made Casey's heart soar. He spontaneously asked her to marry him in front of the church. He was ready to start anew as two ordinary people in love. She happily said yes, and they began their preparations for their special day. Johnny's crook friends convinced him to have one last adventure before the big day. So, they all stayed up late partying and having fun. They thought it would be a great idea for Johnny to show his criminal skills one more time, and he agreed. That night, they stole lots of money and jewels without any worry. The cops and superheroes, led by Praetorian, were fast on Johnny's heels. He was running for his life, knowing that this would inevitably change things between him and Casey. But it was to no avail. He was eventually caught and thrown into prison. Johnny begged the prison guards to let him make a call to Casey, who was waiting for him at the wedding hall. He wished he could have explained everything to her, but it was too late. Johnny had been away for 5 years, and when he returned, he wanted to make things right. He went to Casey's workplace to apologize for what he had done, but Casey wasn't ready to forgive him yet. Johnny felt so sorry for his mistake and tried hard to explain himself, but Casey just asked him to leave. Suddenly, Carmine's tired body stumbled into the room, breathing heavily, begging for their help. Carmine told them that the salamander, someone in charge of the network, had threatened to hurt him if he didn't pay $100 million within 1 month, so they decided to help him get away somewhere overseas. But later, Johnny looks at his childhood journal and remembers the words he wrote about becoming a superhero. So, with a determined glint in his eye, he decides to rewrite history. From this day onward, he would be known as Electro Boy, a supervillain that will never back down from danger. Johnny was determined to make things right for everyone else, so he got all his old buddies together with Casey for one final heist. He declared that he wanted revenge on Matt by stealing the fortune he had hidden away on a secret island in Japan. Johnny was determined to win this time, so he went searching for a special someone who could help him. He found his man, Gladiator, one of the strongest superheroes. Johnny had something up his sleeve though. He threatened to tell Gladiator's husband about a secret affair if he didn't join him. Plus, he promised that they'd teach Praetorian a lesson for teaming up with bad guys and ruining the good name of superheroes. Johnny used Casey's superpowers to get the blueprint of Matt's mansion on the island. After taking a look, he knew what they had to do: get into the underground vault and steal Matt's special briefcase. It was said to have enough storage space for an entire warehouse filled with millions. Johnny invited Casey for a walk on the beach. He wanted to apologize and make things right before their mission ended. Johnny said he was sorry for all his silly mistakes and promised that it would be his last heist ever. Both hugged and made up, happy that they were back together again. The group sprang into action the next morning. They sneaked up to Matt's mansion, ready to carry out their daring heist. But they were in for a surprise. Thanks to the Supermax system, none of the villains had any superpowers. Then, out of nowhere, an army of ninjas appeared. Carmine wasted no time and zapped the ninjas with his heat gun, the only way to keep them at bay. Johnny dashed to the security room, desperate to reactivate their superpowers before it was too late. With just seconds to spare, he turned off the system. Suddenly, they all felt a surge of energy coursing through them. Their powers were back. The ninjas didn't know what hit them as they were quickly defeated by the villain team. The group ventured towards the underground vault, determined to succeed. With every step, there was danger, devious traps that could spell doom for any who triggered them. But with courage and skill, the group managed to outsmart each challenge. Johnny jumped for joy when he saw the treasure inside the briefcase. Praetorian stepped in, blocking their way out and smacking Johnny with a punch that was so strong it knocked him back. His power quickly overwhelmed his friends as he fought against them with ease. It was clear no one could stand up to him. Gladiator stepped up, ready for battle. He bared his powerful fists and squared off against Praetorian. The two superheroes clashed in an epic fight. Gladiator swiftly took control of the match, pummeling Praetorian with blows that left him bruised and battered. In the end, Gladiator emerged triumphant, leaving a defeated Praetorian behind. After a wild and crazy adventure on Matt's island, they had successfully escaped with their share of the 100 million. Johnny made a plan to save himself and Casey from Matt's vengeance in the future. He blamed the stolen briefcase on Salamander, so they could retire as baddies without having to worry about any revenge coming their way. It was a shady move, but hey, it worked. Once everything was over, Johnny took Casey up in a hot air balloon, soaring above the clouds. As they looked down below, Johnny asked Casey something that made her heart skip a beat. He asked her to be his wife. Casey was so happy and said yes right away. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.